Yeah, totally. If you need to go, I totally got that. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Cool. Okay, so what I'm gonna have you guys do is just write down on your piece of paper. Well, I mean, we could do it this way, I guess. Hold on just a second. Okay, you can do it this way, but basically we're going to work through whatever you guys want to work on. If you want to work on, because Tamika, I know that you said like you don't really have a child incarcerated or anything like that. So choose whatever you want to, but I'm pretty sure most of us on here have a loved one inside or are inside ourselves. They're, not me, but
I mean, I don't have a child, but I have some loved ones and some friends that's incarcerated. So it's just, I look at them like my own children.
Okay. Or you could choose a story that like has hurt you in life. Maybe your upbringing, I don't know, whatever you choose, but I'm going to kind of work through mine, my story, and then I want to work with somebody on this call. But basically what we're going to do is get you guys into reality around your loved one's incarceration. And so there we go. Okay, you guys, so basically what happens, I can't see, by the way, all I can see is my my slides. So if you have your hand raised or anything, maybe just like unmute yourself and yell at me. But basically, you guys, there's like concrete facts that happen. So your child got arrested, or my child got arrested. That's what happens. Okay, and so when something happens, whatever it is, an arrest, whatever, anything concrete that happens, it's human nature for us to immediately interpret it whatever our brain makes up. So something concrete happens, and then boom, our brains make an interpretation of that. So we're going to make a reality timeline, and I'm going to work you guys through just like my son really quick, but you guys be thinking about whatever you want to work on. But like I was telling you guys earlier, my son left Oklahoma with his girlfriend. Fact. They traveled to California. Fact. They got in a fight and his girlfriend went back home. Fact. My son was missing for 2 months. Fact. He was arrested. Fact. He's in jail awaiting trial for freaking over 3 years now. Fact. And he's facing 190 years to life. Those are all facts. So what our challenge is staying out of non-reality. So what I just showed you is all reality. And the game is to stay out of the non-reality. So what that looks like is my son left with his girlfriend. My interpretation is, oh my God, are they dead? Are they going to survive? Will I see my son again? These are all things that are going on in my head. And then it's like they traveled to California. And so in my mom brain, did they hitchhike with a serial killer? Are they starving? His girlfriend went back home. I'm like, is she okay? Is she empowered? Did she get home safely? What was that like for her? My son's missing for 2 months. He's in LA. I'm like, oh my gosh, is he homeless in this big city? Again, he's from a small town in Oklahoma. I was literally going to drive to Skid Row and look around for him. And I'm like, oh God, LA or California is going to eat him alive. And then he was arrested. Like I told you guys earlier, I went to go visit him. And in my head, I'm like, is he going to accept my visit? Is he going to have a happy life? Is he going to go to prison? And then he's been in jail awaiting trial. And so my brain's saying things like, oh my gosh, have I said something that the DA could use against him on the phone? Is he going to get COVID? Yes, he has twice. And then, cool, he's facing 190 years to life. What really has had me suffering in the past is he going to get raped? Is he going to die in there? Am I going to be dead by the time he gets out? Actually, what my biggest fear, you guys, is that he's going to go to a level 4 and that he's going to develop some kind of heroin habit. He's not a drug tape. I mean, he smokes weed, but, I'm just afraid that he's going to try heroin and get that type of addiction. So that's what all goes on in my head. And all of that stuff that I just showed you is where I suffer all of the bullshit. I'm too fat, nobody loves me, I'm not worthy of love, I'm a criminal, you know, not good enough, I'm a monster. All of these things that we say to ourselves that our brains interpret is where we suffer in everything that's made up. Okay, so I'm gonna pause right there and look at you guys for a second. Okay. You don't suffer in reality. It doesn't mean reality is easy. It doesn't mean that because our kids are incarcerated. Hi, Edgar, I see you. It doesn't mean that the concrete facts are easy or cool or okay. It's just what happens. And then we make up all of this crap in our head, and that's where we suffer. Oh my God, my kid's gonna get raped. Oh my God, my kid's gonna die. Oh my God, my kid's gonna do heroin. I don't know if that's true or not. It could be, could not be. But me like living in that, like letting my brain run the show and say all of this stuff and just be out of control like our brains do, that's where we suffer. So Mandy, I see you and I want to work with you. By the way, this is recorded. Would you be okay with this? Because I will probably be showing this to other people.
I don't care.
Okay, cool. So walk me through your son's, let's get you down to the concrete facts on what happened with Ty, and you can make it as vague as possible or share as much. But what is concrete fact number one?
Concrete fact number one is March of 2000 when COVID hit, my son got laid off.
Okay, got laid off.
Started collecting a lot of money.
Collected
from
money.
Unemployment, which he then in turn started buying guns and ammunition, and kind of went a little south with the George Floyd thing was going on, and there was a lot of protests and unrest. So he kind of got involved a little of that. Okay. So probably spring, that was like May. And then summer of 2020, his then wife and him started feuding, and a restraining order was issued.
Okay.
And then in October, he violated the restraining order. Back up in August, he threatened to kill the police, which got the FBI involved, and they started watching him on social media. And then in October, at the hearing for the restraining order, he violated it by texting her. And then about November of 2020, his social media all got shut down. Now, in hindsight, we understand why. So he had a plan. He was going through a lot of stuff, and I was trying to get him help. Like you say, I knew he was on a dark path. His father who adopted him was useless as he was for the 20 years that he was in his life. His biological father who gave him up died in October of 2020. 2020 was the year. And then he had decided he was going to just take off and go backpacking, which at the time I thought was the most horrible thing in the world. Like, how am I going to live every day not knowing where my son was?
I'm going to stop you for a second because I love that you're sharing this. But do you see there's concrete facts and then there's
Well, the concrete fact is that his plan was to go backpacking.
Yeah, okay.
That started in probably October as well. Like October 2020, he started getting real dark. He was going to with the restraining order, he couldn't see his daughter. Which at that time, was the end of the world for him. You think it's the end of the world. So the October 2020 was the restraining order. He couldn't see his daughter, and he had this plan to go backpacking. So we didn't know what was going on. And on December 1st is when I got the phone call that he was being arrested by county and the FBI was there. And it was at that point that I knew that this was a much bigger picture than I knew something was coming. But, and so that was when everything started. And then he had 3 charges. He had the violating the restraining order by contacting her. He had a violating the restraining order because he legally possessed firearms, but he didn't surrender them at the time of the restraining order. So that he had that. And then his 3rd charge was, they call it terroristic threats against his family, I think, because he threatened to kill the police and kill people. Those are county charges, but then the FBI was watching him. And so they got him also on the possession of the firearms, which is also a felony. So he has county charges and he has federal charges.
Okay, great.
Those are concrete.
Not great, but you know what I mean. Yeah. Okay, got it.
Yeah. That's the timeline, March 2020 to 12/1 of 2020.
So in those moments of this happened, threats happened, restraining order violated, he's facing prison time, he's in jail. What did your mama brain or human brain say?
My mama brain said it was my fault.
Got it. It's your fault. What
I
else?
didn't, because I compensated when he was a child for his father giving him up, and then I compensated for the father that adopted him for being a piece of shit. And I thought, well, maybe I should have beat him more. I didn't, I never hit him. I just, it was, I think now, a year and a half later, I could say, I don't think it's my fault, no matter, it's their choices. I came from a great, cute little, came from a great family in Connecticut, your picture perfect little Norman Rockwell. But like I said, I sold drugs. I mean, we all do shit, it doesn't matter. It was my choice to do what I did. It wasn't my mom or my dad. It wasn't my upbringing. So it took a lot of reflection to realize it wasn't my fault where he was. But the first instinct was, it was my fault.
Welcome to being a mom with a child incarcerated. Don't we feel, mama's guilt is fucking real and hard. Valerie, you just demonstrated so perfectly that, XYZ happened. And then, it was just demonstrated so perfectly where your suffering is, and all of that stuff that you're saying and all of the stuff that, again, could be true, could not be true. I mean, your dad could die in prison or not, but it's not reality right now. Like, reality is like, you guys, the past is the past. It doesn't exist anymore. And the future is not here yet. So you have no idea what's going to happen. What's going on is literally like the only thing that's real is there is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like 11 people in this chat and we're talking right now. That's reality. Nothing yesterday exists. I got my heart crushed last night. I am heartbroken right now. There is a guy that we have done this dance around each other for like 7 years. I have been like madly in love with him. I date all the time, but I can't let anyone in because that guy is in the back of my head. And we have flirted and we have whatever. And this is like such a perfect demonstration of like what happened is I know this guy, we talk, we meet up, he's from San Francisco. So we met up, we'd go to the beach, whatever. And I lived in a freaking fantasy for 7 years. 7 years that this guy and I are gonna like end up together. And we talked last night and he's interested in my what, and I'm interested in him. And that's it. He wants friends with benefits. And I'm like, dude, really? We've never even kissed. Like, we've never anything. But what's so is like, we like are friends. We keep in touch. We talk all the time. We met up in San Francisco. We did all of that stuff. And I lived in this world of I'm in love with him and we're gonna like da 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 da. None of that was real. Like I don't know. It's just I could have stayed in reality of I talked to this guy here and there, and that's literally it. Like, we're just two people that know each other. We talked on the phone, that's it. But my brain did this whole like, don't you girls can understand, right? Like, we do that stuff. Like we think that something's going to happen the way it's going to happen. We visualize it. And then we get disappointed when it doesn't go that way because I'm kind of going off now. I'm sorry. I'll rein it back, Ed. But we have this expectation that our brain makes up and it's not real. And then when it doesn't happen, we suffer in what we made up in the first place. That's not even realistic. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm going to move on. I just had to like get that out really quick. Okay, so let me re-share my screen. Give me 1 minute.
I love New Yorkers.
Yeah, me too. So glad
Italian
to meet
New
you.
Yorkers.
Okay, you New Yorkers, here we go. Okay, I can't see you guys. So again, if you have like a question or anything, just shout out my name. But okay, so I'm gonna go back to my story with my son. I'm in this program called Introduction Leaders Program through a personal and professional growth and development program called Landmark. And this program is super extensive. It's crazy. It's a kick your ass, like, oh my gosh, it's the best program ever. Like who you are in the beginning and who you are at the end are two totally different people. But anyway, you're supposed to like do all this work and meet all these measures. And I wasn't really producing the way I wanted to because I was in my head and in my stories about my son. It was like, you know, right when this happened, maybe like 4 months after, you know, he got arrested and stuff like that. And so, no, I take that back. I'm sorry. It was 2 years after my son had got arrested. And so on his arrest date anniversary, which was December 6th, I decided, so basically I would tell people that my son had got arrested. And I would tell them, I don't know if you guys heard me say this on Facebook the other day, but I would tell them that he's facing 75 years to life. Now it's like 190, but back then it was 75. And I would never talk about why, like what happened, why he got arrested. I can't, but even to the people close to me, I just didn't want to. And I stood up in front of my class on his arrest anniversary, I guess. And I told them like everything and the charges and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I know Wendy's on this call and she's a Landmark person too. So I know she understands what I'm saying. But after I got done sharing all of that, I got a standing ovation, a room full of people. They were all really close to me, but they like clapped and they gave me this standing ovation. And I'm like, what the heck? Like only in this program would I get a standing ovation after I just said like all of the stuff that I just said. And it was really amazing. But I had a coach that read me this document. So this document that I'm about to share with you guys is by a guy named Werner Erhard that started Landmark. And so basically why I'm reading this to you guys is because when my coach read it to me, I got very clear that aligning with reality is how you eliminate your suffering. So from him reading this document that I'm about to read to you guys, from that moment on, I stay out of like the bullshit in my head as much as possible. So when it shows up and I'm thinking, oh my God, my son's gonna start heroin, or oh my God, he's gonna go to a level 4 and XYZ is gonna happen, and all this stuff that I have no idea because that's not even in reality right now. I stop myself and I go back and I align with what's realistic. Okay, my son left Oklahoma, he came out here, he got arrested, blah, blah, blah. And I keep aligning myself with reality and I don't entertain, actually I do entertain it for a second. I recognize those thoughts when they come into my head, I acknowledge it, and then I put it out of my head and I align back with reality. So the challenge is staying in reality as much as possible. And for those of you that are in a relationship, if you can stay in reality with whatever you're fighting with your husbands and wives about, it's like, it would do wonders for, you know, eliminating fighting basically. So I'm gonna go ahead and read you guys this document. Okay, so it's called What's So by Werner Erhard. And again, this is what my coach read to us. What's so is always just what's so. What's so, wow, I really gotta like redo these slides. What's so doesn't care what you think, feel, intend, or wish. It will not bend. You could be freaked out or driven over what's so, and it won't change what's so. If you're late for an appointment, getting freaked out about it won't have you arrive any earlier. If you're having a bad day, being freaked out won't change what's so. That which you seek will not bring satisfaction. Aligning with what's so will. When you're upset, you're never upset over what's so. What's so is just what's so, and you're upset. If your house burns down and you get upset, does it bring your house back? What's so doesn't care if you're upset. It's up to you how to handle what's so. There is no confusion in what's so. When you don't know, you just don't know. There's no confusion there. Uh-oh. What's happening here? Okay. Oh, sorry guys, hold on 1 second. Okay. There's nothing right or wrong about what's so. What's so is always open to different interpretations. There's always just what's so, and then you have an interpretation. What scares you isn't what's so, it's your interpretation. So let me say that again, Valerie. What scares you isn't what's so, it's your interpretation. The interpretation is never true. What's so is real. The interpretation is not. Who you're being is just who you're being. And what's so doesn't care if you're happy with it or not. So why should you? Sorry about the funkiness of these slides. When you're not being with what's so, that's also just what's so. Why should you concern yourself? So meaning like if you're not being, if you're being in your interpretation, you're not being with what's so, that's also just what's so. Other people should always be the way they're being. If you think they shouldn't, that's your interpretation. I have to read this all the time because I am so good at thinking everyone needs to be a certain way that pleases me. So I have to read all the time that other people should always be the way they're being. And if I think they shouldn't be that way, that's only my interpretation. Doesn't mean it's right. Bring yourself back to what's so about them. Until you can be with what's so, you can't be with anything or anyone. You may have control over other people's what's so, but none over their interpretation. So give it up. This is really great for, again, when you're in a fight with someone, you might have control over what's so, but you do not control their interpretation. So give it up. If you take action or not, it's still just what's so. If it works out well or not, it's still just what's so. You can never make a right or wrong decision or take a right or wrong action. Whatever you do will always bring more of what's so, and then you have an interpretation about it. Whatever you don't have, so what? Whatever you've done in the past, whatever you've done or thought in the past, again, so what? Whatever happens in the future is not to be feared. It's just going to be more of what's so. So again, Valerie, whatever happens in the future is not to be feared. It's just going to be more of what's so. The challenge is to spend as much time in what's so as you can. The chatter in your head is more interpretation, and it has nothing to do with what's so. There's nothing wrong with chatter. It's just you listening to a fantasy like you're in love with some dude for 7 years. The thought that there is something wrong is an illusion. There's nothing wrong. There's only what's so. I'm going to read that again. The thought that there is something wrong is an illusion. There's nothing wrong. There's only what's so. Notice when you're comparing what's so to some fantasy of how it should be, bring yourself back to what's so, and it will all be okay. Notice when you're comparing what's so to some fantasy of how it should be. My family should be out here. They should not be incarcerated. They should this, they should that. Just bring yourself back to reality and it'll all be okay. Ask yourself what's so and align with that. Align with what's so and it will not matter. This is the foundation of transformation and satisfaction. Not aligning with what's so is the only thing that will ever bring you hardship or suffering. Not aligning with reality is the only thing that will ever bring you hardship or suffering. Life and so what will bring you harmony, grace, and balance. Ask yourself what's so about your situation. And then, you know, I kind of threw this in here because, oh, sorry, those are my notes to myself. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of bring up, like, you know, it's like in prison, like conflicts, people fight in prisons because they are fighting about their interpretation about whatever happened, which is so silly. I mean, we do it all the time. We're human. But I want to kind of like end this or like drill it home, I guess, and share a story about my son, if you guys don't mind. It was like the coolest. Let me take another drink of water. Okay, who is iPhone? I see you, but I'm not sure what your name is.
Greg.
Hi, duh, of course. Hi, I'm so glad you made it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Okay, Okay, so I am going to, okay, so I'm gonna tell you guys a story. It was the coolest, like, on the court representation of like what's so and interpretation. And it was amazing because it was with my son. And so when I was going through this program that I just told you about, one of the things that I was taking on is getting like complete with my mom. And getting, hi, duh, of course. Hi, I'm so glad you made it. Okay, cool. Okay, so I am going to, okay, so I'm gonna tell you guys a story. It was the coolest, like, on the court representation of like what's so and interpretation. And it was amazing because it was with my son. And so when I was going through this program that I just told you about, one of the things that I was taking on is getting like complete with my mom and getting over our past and all of this stuff. And so I called her one day and I took 100% responsibility for how our life went down. I'm going to kind of like skip over this, but I was like, you know, I take responsibility for the meeting I made about XYZ and all of these things that happened. And my mom, her answer was like, I don't know what you were talking about. I was a perfect mom. That's what she literally said. I was like, okay. And so I went to go see my son that day after having that conversation. And I was telling him about the conversation with my mom and just whatever, we were laughing about it all. And then I was like, wait a minute, do you see me the way I see my mom? Like, do you think I'm crazy the way I think she's crazy? And I was like, what was it like for you growing up? And with me, and he's like, well, you lectured a lot and I was grounded and you spanked me and my dad spanked me and blah, 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 like all of this stuff. Oh, and he told me that whenever I get mad, my face gets red. And I was laughing. I'm like, really? It does? Like, I had no idea my face gets red. But anyway, and then he goes, do you remember breaking your toe on the car seat? And I was like, yeah, totally. And he starts talking about it and he starts describing it like it perfectly. So in a car seat, he was probably, I think it was more of a booster seat. So he was probably like, I don't know, 5 or something like that at this time. But he was like, the car seat was, we lived upstairs and we had this like wall of mirrors and I'm a photographer. So he was describing our kitchen table in there and I had like my cameras and photos all over it and da, 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 da. And then he goes, and you got mad and kicked the car seat and broke your toe. And I was like, what? That is not what happened. And I was like, no, the car seat was in the kitchen. And I walked in and it was dark and I like stubbed my toe on the car seat. And I remember it perfectly. I remember grabbing my toe. I remember bouncing up and down like in pain. And then I was like, holy crap. And I was like, what happened is I broke my toe on the car seat. And he has this interpretation. I have this interpretation. Mind you, both of them are in 2 separate rooms. And I have no idea which one is real because I see my version perfectly detail oriented. He sees his version perfectly detail oriented. Who knows which one's real? I could have gotten pissed and stubbed my toe on the car seat or kicked it or whatever he said. I don't know. But this is how gnarly interpretation is because we see it in our heads or we think it and then we live it like it's true. So I told you guys earlier that I had a hellacious court battle with my son's father and I ended up moving back to California and I devastated my kid and all of those things. And while I'm having this discussion with him about these interpretations and things like that, it was so perfect to be able to talk with him about it because I was like, babe, do you realize that we spent 3 years in court? I spent $30,000 fighting, you know, and I have my interpretation of, you know, whatever went wrong. His dad has his interpretation of whatever went wrong. And my son has his interpretation of what went wrong. And we fought over interpretation, not concrete facts, for 3 years in court. That's how gnarly that shit is. Do you guys get that?
That's a really big problem Tyler and I have. A lot of Tyler's memories are interpretation.
Tell me about it.
A lot of them. Like he told his wife stories and Amber will tell me something and I'll be like, that's not what happened. He has a lot of, and you can't change their mind. I mean, he thinks that.
It's real. I
That
mean, it
happened,
really,
like it's as real to him as my side is as real to me.
totally. I mean, it's human. We could not
Yeah.
avoid this. We cannot avoid this. Our brains do this automatically. Something happens, we automatically make the interpretation, and then we live in it like it's real. And then we get divorced and we fight and we get in fights in prison and we do all of this crap because of interpretation. We're never fighting over what's so. Never. You can't fight over concrete shit. You can't. You're only going to fight over what you think is right. It's brutal. It's brutal. And don't think for a second that jurors aren't listening to interpretations of the DA and all made up shit. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? It's interpretation though. I want to hear from you guys. What are you guys hearing out of this?
Well, I did all that. That's me. That's my path for the day. I'm trying to be the best father I can be, the best stepfather I can be, trying to be the best man that I can be. You know, that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? That's all I really want. You know, I appreciate you for what you're doing. Thank you, you know, inviting me on your stuff. It's cool. You know, that's what's up for real.
Yeah, Shane, I'm glad you're here. You guys, all I'm hearing right now is that we need to have, like next Sunday, we need to have a taking responsibility Zoom call. Would that be helpful to you guys?
Yeah, we can do it.
Okay, let's do that.
Yes.
That's the next meeting. What were you saying, Lucy?
Oh, I said yes, I would like to do that.
Okay. What about you, Mandy? Does that sound good? All right. Are you okay, Mandy? I wish I could give you a big hug. What's going on in your head?
It's just hard. You know, my son's only doing I say only because when I hear you say the 190 years,
That
I
doesn't
can't
make it less hurtful.
I know. No, I know. Tyler was facing 10 years. They were trying to get him on lots of other charges. He could have been doing 20. He could have been doing a lot. So he's doing 24 months. And when he got sentenced, I just was like, you know, like I think Imelda said, you know, he's my baby, you know, and I thought for 24 months, my son's sitting in federal prison, you know, missing out on his daughter and, you know, missing out on the holidays and just, you know, 2 years of his life. And I remember I cried for days just thinking, you know, how did I get here? You know, taking, you know, in the interpretation in my head and the guilt. And it doesn't get any easier. You know, Lucy and I apparently are both from San Antonio, you know, and to see her say that her son's doing the 20 years, like I just, you know, whether it's 2 years or 20 years or 190 years, there are babies. And a friend of mine, he did 10 years, I said it earlier, and he always says that nobody sees what the moms go through. You know, I don't cry, you know, when Ty calls me, I'm always happy and his biggest cheerleader and put the money on the commissary and, you know, send him books and send him pictures. And I don't cry. I remember the first time I went to visit him, I cried, but it's just hard. It's just a hard thing as a mom to wake up every day and go to work, function when your sons are sitting in prison.
Well, I have a request. I have a request for all of you this week, and Mandy, especially, well, all of you. This week, I want you guys to take on, hold on one moment. Oh, can all of you guys put in your email information into the chat whenever you guys get a second? But this week, I want you guys to, like, as much as possible, stop yourselves and get into reality. Like if you're mad at someone or your son, you know, it's like, I get it. It's heartbreaking that he is inside. And he is not with, you know, Haley, and he's missing out on his daughter and all of that stuff. Like that is tough stuff. And it's what's so. And so the suffering is whatever you're making it mean about. It's Haley, right? That's your granddaughter's name? What is it?
Marley, like Bob Marley.
Oh, Marley. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Both cute names. I love both of those names. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's tough. It's tough that he's missing out with Marley, but you're making meaning to it. What's so is he's just in there for, I mean, not just, he's in there and she's out here. That's like literally what's so. Nothing else is real than that. He's here, she's there. And you're interpreting it, rightfully so, human, loving, compassionately, you're interpreting it to mean X, Y, and Z, and you're suffering in that. So I just challenge you guys to like really this week stop and like stay in what is reality as much as possible and start like really recognizing when you're in interpretation, recognize when your head is spinning, recognize when you're suffering, and stop yourself and be like, okay, what is the reality of the situation? What is what's so of the situation? And when we come back next Sunday, I want to hear from you guys, like, you know, how you developed that. It's developing a muscle. That's all it is. Okay. And yeah, it's just developing this muscle. You guys, people all the time are like, but you're so bubbly and you're so happy and your son's in there. It's because I stick in freaking reality. I wasn't that way until I read that, until my coach read me that document. I was suffering like crazy. I was in action. I didn't lay around depressed all the time. I knew because of moms, because of you guys, I didn't want anyone to go through this alone. I walked in, like I saw my son for the first time. I have like zero family support. I can't say zero, my aunt and my little nephew, but I've done all of this on my own and it fucking sucked. And I didn't want anyone to go through this alone. It's so weird. And then I see moms who are just as lovely and beautiful as Wendy and Mandy and Lucy and Imelda, and they're crying the most at jail visits. And I know that they're suffering interpretation. And I know that's why I started Thrive Inside, because it doesn't have to be that harsh if you stick in reality. So will you guys accept my request to like kind of take that on this week and stay in reality as much as possible? And oh, I didn't read what Wendy wrote, but I'll go back and read the chat. Will you guys like unmute yourself and let me make a request that you guys this week stay in reality, and if you accept my request, like get off mute and tell me yes, no, or counter offer me.
I'll try my best.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay.
I will.
Okay. I don't know who just said that. Was that Lucy?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll be there. I'll be there.
Okay.
Yeah. Get me a.
Okay. Greg?
Well, I'll see you Sunday.
You what?
See you Sunday.
I'll see you Sunday.
Okay. Okay. Imelda, you as well?
Yes.
Okay. Khalil, Andy.
It's nice
Most
meeting
definitely.
everybody.
And I'll be inviting my mom to the space.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
My goal, you guys, is I don't think any of you guys are any of them are on, but I had one of these meetings with Edgar was one of them. It was 2 incarcerated people and 2 previously incarcerated people the other day. And I like got off the call and I was so high. I was actually literally a little bit high on an edible, but I was like high from the conversation. And it was just like, oh my gosh, I love the moms and I love the family and I am like so here for it. But you guys, the hunger that our incarcerated community has for these types of conversations is huge and beautiful. And my goal is to get as many of our incarcerated men and women on these types of calls so we can have these types of conversations. So if your like loved ones has any way that they can join, please get them to join. Please get your family members to join. Like, let's just build this. Like, let's just have these conversations and support each other. Sound good?
Sound like a deal. Sound like a good deal to me.
All right, Greg. Does anybody have anything else to say before we end? We kind of went pretty far over, which is
Yeah, Mandy, I just want to say something that I think for this week, we can practice compassion to ourselves because we really tend to be hard and the feeling of guilt and we're not doing enough and all of that, right?
yeah.
So just really have the compassion that we're doing what we're doing and stay to the presence of be loving to ourselves, I think as well is very important as we practice the little things, the little nuggets that we got from this session.
Yeah.
So
Totally. You guys, mother's guilt, and I don't know about fathers, but I mean, I could only imagine, but mother's guilt, I don't think that's interpretation. That's real. It's like real. I mean, those things were inside of us. You know what I mean? Like, holy crap, it's real. but it's also interpretation too. So yeah, Imelda's completely right. Like, give space to your humanity, give space to, give compassion to everything. Like, you guys love your children. You did your best. If you were crappy parents, you would not be on this freaking call. You just wouldn't. You would not care. You'd be doing drugs and crack and like not getting shit. And that's not who you guys are. You guys get that?
Yep.
Okay, does anybody need to say anything else before we leave?
Well, great show.
Thank
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank
Appreciate
you.
the show.
Yeah, you guys were amazing. I love it. I love it. I'm so freaking grateful for this community. Like, God, I couldn't imagine going through this like alone. I'm so grateful for Facebook groups and meeting who I've met, and thank you. Thanks for being part of my community and supporting me. And I'm going to lean on you guys here in a little bit when I go through this trial with my son. That's for sure. You think I'm going to be this like empowered? Fuck no. I'm going to be, I'm going to need you guys. That's for sure. All right, guys. Love you. We'll talk soon,
bye-bye.
okay?
See you
Bye.
next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Imelda.
Hi, girl.
Hey. Bye, Mandy.
Bye, sweetie.
Bye. Imelda, how do I save this chat? I can't find this. Do you know? Are you on there?
Yeah, I think once we get off, it will get emailed to either
it
me or
does?
you. So
It
yeah,
does it automatically?
yeah, it does. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So you can as soon as we leave, I think it should be fine. So I'm gonna log off. You can call me for a few minutes if you like.
Okay, let me get my dog ready. I'm gonna take her to go pee and then I'll call you on my way.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
All right, bye.
Bye.